Hello, and welcome back to the MCYT Metazine. I'm Fallguy, here with Bird, whose piece covers the apocalypses of Hermitcraft 8 and Empire Season 1. So first of all, I wanted to get started and ask, how did you decide what topic you wanted to analyze for this zine?
So my topic is kind of an analysis of the Empire Season 1 and Hermitcraft Season 8 finales. And those have always been some of my favorite seasons of like films, Minecraft roleplay online, just in general. And because of the similar apocalypsy endings and the very small time gap between them, I've always kind of wanted to take a go at analyzing them and seeing if there was anything deeper to that than just kind of causal similarities.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is a very interesting occurrence that happened, and I can see how that would be interesting to analyze.
Yeah.
What would you most like people to take away from your piece?
I think what I'd like people to take away is something that I kind of figured out, I guess would be the right word, while I was writing it, and that you don't really have to quote unquote follow the rules or whatever genre you're working in for your story. And it can be a good guideline, sure, but you don't really have to follow those expected like plot lines or consistencies or tones or whatever it may be to make a good, enjoyable story and to make a ending that fits the story that came before it.
Definitely. I know that a lot of my favorite pieces of media are things that subvert tropes that are very common and very rarely subverted.
Yeah, and even, like, not quite subversion, but almost just the twisting of it, like, it's the same trope, but it has, like, a take on it that you might not have expected.
That makes sense, yeah. I think that's a good thing to want other people to understand about media, especially in MCYT.
Mhm.
What would you say you're proudest of in this piece?
The joking answer is that I was able to cite a Tumblr post saying that Scott's nature is Jesus, but in actuality, the fact that I was able to find, like, things out of this that even I didn't notice on my first watch throughs.
Yeah, finding those extra details is definitely fun, and I'm glad you have a place to point those out for people as well.
Mhm.
Is there anything from this piece that you'll be taking with you into the future?
Kind of the media analysis stuff that I did, like, it's always kind of weird taking it from school where you kind of just did it for a grade and then taking it and applying it to a media that you enjoy. And I had a lot more fun doing this than, like, say, a lot of my school essays. So kind of even just that tone and that idea that media analysis can be fun, actually, and not just about fanfic.
Oh yeah, and I'm really glad that a lot of our analysts are seeing that as well. And I hope that we can inspire other people to pick up media analysis, just because it's so interesting to take a topic that maybe starts as fictional and be like, well, I can pull real life applications from this that are just for fun. They're just for me and for the people I want to share them with on social media, not just for a grade.
Yeah.
Is there anything else from the creative process that you'd like to share? Are there any details or points that you'd like to highlight or anything that didn't make the final cut?
There is one thing that I'm really disappointed didn't make the final cut because in Hermitcraft Season 8, there were multiple instances of these kinds of cults forming around the moon. Like, for example, the mooners who decided to not sleep and for once actually kind of had sleep deprivation being a thing in Minecraft, and also whatever Ren and Doc had going on. To be fair, like, I tried looking into some of that stuff, but it's just so dense and complicated from those two's ends that it's really hard. And it would be really interesting to kind of look at the members' reactions, I guess would be the best word, to the moon falling, to everything that's going on, but I wasn't quite able to find a place for it.
Yeah, and especially with such a tight word limit as well, I know it would have been hard to include such a broad scope.
Yeah.
So, you've titled your piece As the World Caves In, which of course is a rather popular song. So, what's the story behind picking that title specifically?
So part of the reason I picked a song lyric for it is it's kind of what I do for a lot of my writing pieces, like whether it's fan fiction, whether it's a paper I'm writing for school. I just like going to song lyrics and song names in general because it's a really good way to kind of draw people in even before the hook. But the reason I chose As the World Caves In specifically is actually a connection to the fandom response to these two different finales. Because As the World Caves In is the only song that has a finale animatic for both series. Like, my working title for this was actually It's the End of the World as We Know It, and I Feel Fine, which is a song that got used for a Hermitcraft finale animatic, but wasn't used for Empires, at least not in like a big popular animatic type of way. So I wanted to have something that connected back to both the series, not just one of them.
Yeah, that's really cool that there are animatics for both of them to that specific song, and only that song, it sounds like.
At least from what I could see, like I'm sure that somewhere in the depths of YouTube there are more shared songs like that, but the YouTube algorithm is not that kind to trying to find those.
No, it's certainly not. So I think there's something to be said for the many ways in which people treated the real life pandemic, from apocalypse to just minor convenience. Do you think that Hermitcraft 8 and Empires Season 1 would have ended in apocalypse without the influence of the global pandemic?
I think it depends on the series because with Empires, it makes sense to kind of have a season end in this big, like, apocalyptic thing. It fits with kind of the fantasy tone of the series. With Hermitcraft, it is a bit more interesting because it hadn't ended in a big apocalypse before. Ending with an apocalypse is nothing new to Minecraft series. A lot of the like not I don't want to say not as famous, but like not as widespread as like Hermitcraft and Empires are. Some of those have ended with natural disaster or some kind of apocalypse in a way. Like I know from talking to some of my friends that stuff like Skyblock Kingdoms, I believe Truly Bedrock, those kinds of things have ended with something like this. But I don't think Hermitcraft would have ended with this without like that thing happening in the real world.
Interesting, yeah. I can see that. You've also made a note in your piece that "is the moon big" is often misquoted by Hermitcraft fans. Do you think that there's any depth to that, or is it just a minor misquotation that spread farther than the original video?
I think that is the type of thing where the re-quoted version got more popular than the original one because the original one was Bumbo asking if the moon was big. But since then, it has been said like multiple ways, and the fandom probably just picked up on one of the bigger instances of it because I believe Graham said that in his finale. I would have to check again, but it isn't the first time that line has been re-quoted so many times. Like it kind of makes sense that somewhere along the way, the original starting words got dropped or added new ones.
Yeah, that's just a thing that happens sometimes. But yeah, I see that. I see what you're saying. I'm also very interested in the weird sausage lore of Empires 1. I think it's quite a non sequitur, honestly. Do you think he was just making his own lore there? Or was it something the whole server agreed on as part of the Rapture lore?
So the thing with Sausage is that he has quite a lot of his own lore going on. Like it pops up a lot more in kind of Empire Season 2 and the things that came after, but he has his own like universe of world hopping and multiverse lore under his belt. And that is his isn't even the only time that a creator focuses and kind of brings an end to their own lore in the middle of like the finale for the whole season. Like you see that with Lizzie with her unbecoming the blue axolotl. I think it is a very united series, but some of the divergences of the specific creators are a little bit more chaotic, I guess you could say, than others.
Yeah, yeah. To me, Sausage's lore there, I see it as something like the murder hornets in real life, where it was something that, in the midst of chaos, that was somehow even more chaotic, it got lost along the way.
Sausages, murder hornets.
Sausage's murder hornets. You heard it here first, folks. So, do you think that the extensive allusions to biblical lore in the Empire's finales were all purposeful? Or do you think they were just the separate visions of the creators all coming together to create a larger metaphor?
I do not actually think it was kind of intentional, at least not fully intentional. As I kind of mentioned in my paper, the like Pix exiles himself to the desert is largely a fanon comparison rather than like an entrenched canon one. And Santa Perla, who I also mentioned, is largely in Paris season two kind of creation, I guess you could say. But I have a theory that some of those like biblical allusions are just a result of the drawing from that larger space of fantasy tropes, like this battle of good versus evil, the self-sacrifice kind of thing. Like that first Scott's Major was Jesus post was kind of a jokey analysis in the first place, but it kind of makes sense in my view of things. It most likely wasn't intentional and is kind of a case of illusions getting ascribed to things after the fact.
Yeah, I understand that. I know that fandom certainly is very good at assigning religious imagery to things that don't originally have that religious imagery.
It really is.
So, with the differences among the hermits' conclusions versus the unity among the emperors, do you think one style is better than the other, or is it simply a matter of the differences between the server's use of lore?
I think trying to answer that question would be like trying to answer, is a science fiction or fantasy movie the better one? Because each server has an ending and a style that works for them. Like it wouldn't fit to have Hermitcraft's ending happen to Empires or vice versa. Because with Hermitcraft, you typically want to have that big lead up, that big server changing event, like some kind of solid conclusion that you know is coming. Meanwhile, with Empires, it almost fits the story it was trying to make in a better way to have it be so sudden with this one conclusion of lore setting off a chain reaction over the whole server. I really don't think one style is better than the other because both of them work for the genre that they are put in.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I definitely see what you're saying with the two being very different genres. Especially because, of course, Empires is lore driven, whereas Hermitcraft is not.
hmm It's just really interesting in general watching that difference play out, like the difference between the lore heavy and the largely like lore heavy is not the right word because like storylines happen, but it's much more, I guess you could say, shenanigans based in Hermitcraft. Like there's a difference in how they tell those stories, so it makes sense that their endings are different.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that is all the questions that I have for you. Do you have any questions for me before we end?
I have one question. How have you not died during this?
During which part?
In general.
Losing a little bit of sleep, you know? Well, thank you for your time, and of course for answering all of our questions.
Of course.
You can check out this piece and all the other pieces for the MCYT magazine when it releases. See you then!